Hi, freelance friends. I'm happy to have you back. Thanks for joining me again. As I've mentioned before, as freelancers, we wear all of the hats. We're creators, we're marketers, we're schedulers, we're accountants, and we're negotiators. And while I've gotten more comfortable with most of those roles over the years, negotiating does still give me pause sometimes. Now, recently, I had an experience that reminded me of just how important it is to speak up for your value. Even in times like these, when the economy feels slightly uncertain to some of us. I wanted to share my experience here with all of you, not because I handled it perfectly, but because it's the kind of situation that so many freelancers find themselves in frequently. Sometimes we just need a reminder that asking for what we deserve is part of doing business, not something to feel guilty or nervous about. I believe that freelancers often hesitate to negotiate, even when we know deep down that the rate we've been offered doesn't quite match the value of our time, our expertise, or our commitment. And I get it. We worry that we're going to come across as difficult, ungrateful, or risk losing work that we enjoy and need. In times of economic uncertainty, like many of us are experiencing now, that hesitation can grow even stronger because we may feel that we need to be more protective of the work that we've already acquired and not put it at risk. When the headlines start talking about slowing job growth, budget tightening, or belt tightening across several industries, it's really easy to slip into scarcity thinking, something along the lines of, I should just take what I can get. But here's the truth. Even when the economy feels uncertain, it's still important and safe to ask for fair compensation. Because if your work delivers real value, then your worth doesn't necessarily fluctuate with the job market. So the situation that I recently found myself in is basically that I had recently agreed to deliver a 4-day training for a client that I work with regularly. I enjoy collaborating with them and I really value the relationship. It is the client that I do the most work for. So when they sent over the contract for this 4-day delivery, I really just skimmed the details because I know all of their language and expectations until I noticed the rate. The rate that they listed was comparable to work that I do for them for another related client, but this project, this 4-day project, wasn't a day-to-day consistent hourly project. This was a standalone 4-day training that was going to occur from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. And it was on a specialized high demand topic related to AI, which we all know is a hot topic right now. So because of the time block of the scheduled training, it meant that I really couldn't take on other work on those days. Part of my morning was occupied and most of my afternoon was occupied. Plus, I would need to reserve additional time to prep, log on early, and possibly stay later to answer participant questions. So when I looked at the bigger picture and combined the prep time, the expertise required for this training, and the blocked out schedule, I realized and validated that the proposed rate didn't make sense for this engagement. So after contemplating for a while, I took a breath and wrote a short professional email which explained my reasoning for my dissatisfaction with the rate on this contract. Now, I wasn't defensive or demanding. I did take enough time before writing the email to work through the emotions that I was feeling when I first saw the rate. So I wrote this email in a clear-headed way and outlined that the nature of the training was specialized in high demand, that the full day time commitment, including prep and follow-up, warranted a full day rate. And while the rate did match something that I accepted for consistent day-to-day hourly work, this multi-day facilitation was not the same thing. So I asked if we could revisit the rate to better reflect the scope of the work. They replied and asked what I thought was a fair rate. I hesitated because I did not want to give too low of a rate, but I also didn't want to give too high of a rate. I wanted to have something that was reasonable. So I did some research and came up with what I felt was a reasonable rate for the training. They did respond and gave me almost exactly what I asked for. It was slightly lower, but in all transparency, it was still 3 times what they had initially offered me. So from my vantage point, I felt very satisfied with the way that it turned out. They also explained that the lower rate wasn't intentional. It was simply an administrative oversight. They had simply copied my rate from the day-to-day project without even giving much thought to why this multi-day facilitation project warranted a much higher rate. So they adjusted the rate upward right away when they realized that error. And I ended up very happy. And luckily, within this interaction, there was no tension, no awkwardness. It was just a recognition that I deserved fair pay for fair work. So obviously, this experience validated for me, advocating for yourself doesn't have to be uncomfortable or risky, even in an uncertain economy, and that while you may not always get the result that you're looking for, it's generally worth it. And let's be honest, economic uncertainty messes with our confidence. When we hear about hiring freezes or budget cuts, it's natural to get cautious, to lower our rates, to accept projects that don't pay enough, or to tell ourselves it's better than nothing. We start making fear-based decisions in those situations instead of value-based ones. And in my own personal experience, I find that to not be effective. It never ends up in my best interest when I do that. Instead, I challenge you to change your mindset. Rather than thinking about scarcity, think about things that are going to help you stay grounded in your worth. For instance, when times are unpredictable, clients often need skilled, reliable professionals like us more than ever. So undervaluing yourself doesn't create security. It creates burnout and resentment and a lower income level. So even when job growth slows, your expertise doesn't lose its value. In fact, it can sometimes become more important to stand firm in your worth. Accepting less than fair pay doesn't create stability for you. In fact, in my opinion, it undermines it. So yes, negotiating doesn't always turn out the way you want. Sometimes a client can't budge or the timing just isn't right. But sometimes, like in this case, it does work out. And when it does, it's a really powerful reminder that asking is always worth it. So the next time a rate doesn't feel right to you, please do not talk yourself out of the conversation. Ask for what you deserve. Clarify why you are worth the rate or the conditions that you are requesting, and negotiate when warranted. Don't think of it as being difficult. You're being professional. And those small, confident actions are what's building long-term sustainability for your freelance business, because likely you're in this for the long haul. Remember, at the end of the day, you're not just working for yourself. You're building a business that honors your expertise, your energy, and your worth. I hope you found this helpful. I'd love to see your comments. Thank you for joining me. Please like and subscribe if you did find this helpful. I'll be releasing other videos on freelancing very soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye.